There they are.
Okay. Hey,
They're
did you guys
back.
get it figured out?
Sorry.
We're good?
Profusely
Oh gosh, he froze
happened
again.
again?
just as we were starting.
Okay.
That's bummer.
It would be best if everyone turns off their video for anybody
Probably right.
like Margie who's got like low internet back there. So
Yeah, let's do that.
If I were her, I would turn that off.
We can give this a try.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately we're getting towards peak internet usage hours, and out here in the county gets a little dicey sometimes.
Yeah, we get it. Good deal. So I think everybody's got their camera turned off, or about to anyway. So this is Scott. I guess you can kind of see who's talking, but this is Scott, and I don't know if Mike was able to get in. So we have a host of stupid technical problems with this meeting. So sorry about that, everybody. I did have a chance to review the presentation, and I want to thank you guys for all the effort that went into it. And one of the things that stuck out at me is obviously you guys are calling me out and about an environmental impact study, and I don't want you guys to get off the meeting without an answer to that question. And Marty may have some input in this too, but the basic answer to your question, if environmental impact studies are good things, why aren't we insisting on it? And the reason is it's not our place to insist on it until an application has been made at Eagle. They're going to have no choice but to do an environmental impact study, or an EA, or an environmental assessment as they call them. And while it's always a good idea, and it would be a great thing for the stakeholders that are concerned about the impact of the plant to have it done, it's simply not legally required. And I don't know any, and especially if they don't own the property, they have not established site control. They don't own the property, and you can't do an environmental impact study on a piece of property that you don't own. So it's kind of a conundrum. I know it sounds like a crappy answer, because it is, but there's also a logic to it that is not embarrassing. And so we're not in a position to demand something of someone that doesn't even own the property. And at the same time, once they go into the application process, they have to do it anyway. It's required. Marty, am I getting any of that wrong? I just want to be sure.
No, that's right. And to the point that the benefit is, once that is submitted and those data start coming in, we'll actually sign up that we'll receive and any citizen can do it as well, where you receive notification anytime information is uploaded to the Eagle or the regulation portal. And that's really where we can plug in, because we'll be reviewing all those documents, looking to make sure that the environmental compliance documents have been completed, but also we'll be scouring and vetting those data to see what they're indicating and any potential harm to the watershed.
And that's the usual and sort of customary time we plug in, right? Is once the application is in the full throes of Eagle examination, right?
Yeah, and the main reason is because up until that point, those data that are being talked about, nothing's formalized until that actually starts getting uploaded to the Eagle website. At that point, all of those data are part of the application packet. And that's really what we rely on, is when we know that those are official data that are being distributed. And only at that time can we determine, what the actual, or at least evaluate what those actual impacts are going to be.
Yeah, it's not a great answer, because if I'm a citizen and the factory is looking to build, and you're saying, well, what the hell is going to happen to the environment? Totally understand that. But if they say, look, we don't even own the property yet, and once we own the property, we have to apply for it, and that's when we're going to do all the studies. There's a certain logic to that. It may be irritating as can be, but the logic is rather compelling from their perspective. And I don't know what else we do other than just talk in general terms about protecting the watershed. And I don't know the reasoning, and as far as I know anyway, that the Pioneer has not taken any of the information that Marty and I provided them. And they were basically a series of long quotes that talked about what our concerns are and the balance points between stakeholder values and all that other stuff. I don't know if they've done an article and they've used our stuff. I haven't been in touch with the reporter that we were working with to find out. But does anybody on this call know if there's been an article in the last month? Because Marty, I think it's been at least a month or maybe 5 weeks since we gave them the information.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah.
This is Brandi speaking.
Yeah, Brandi.
I have reached out to the Pioneer because, like you said, you did your job,
Yep.
you issued something and we didn't know exactly what that was. So I was waiting, ourselves to see what
Yeah.
would be published. So I reached out and I spoke with Darren, and he had told me just last week that at first he acted like he knew what I was talking about. Then I called back and he said, we don't have any information from them. The last thing was from back in April. He said, we don't have any new information. And I said, well, he said
Wrong.
he submitted it. And I don't think he would say that at his board meeting and everything if they didn't submit it. So
No.
he said he was getting with the Kathy
Yep.
and was going to make her forward over all of her emails and all of her information. And he was supposed to be going through that and getting back with me. And I've reached out to him twice since, and then I haven't heard anything back. So
Gotcha.
I didn't know
Yeah.
what was up with that.
Yeah, Brandi,
Just to
our-
clarify though,
Yeah, our
I'm sorry.
contact there was Kathy. Our contact there was Kathy. She's the one that requested stuff and she's the one that we provided to on a timely basis. So,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kathy Crew has been
Yeah,
pioneering
that's
as
right.
reporter
That's
on
right.
Gotion. But just to clarify real quick, I obviously, y'all, run your organization and run media however you see best suited to you, but you are, I'll reiterate again, most welcome to forward whatever documentation you send over to the Pioneer directly to me or to Brandi or to both of us.
Yep, I understand. You're doing your job, Marjorie. Well done.
I didn't want to interrupt either of you, but I am happy to kind of respond to and ask some follow-up questions in regard to the EIS. But unless there was more that you wanted to cover first.
I don't think so. I think I don't believe I opened up with saying this, but this is the normal time when we would be having our board meeting. And I just want you guys to know that, Sarah, Marty, and I, we're meeting with you guys now because we value your input as stakeholders on the watershed. And we wanted to go ahead with this meeting so that we would have more input to give to our board next month. And we didn't want to wait because we know time is of the essence here. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we're not just blowing smoke your way and we're not dodging you at all. And in fact, it's the other direction. You're appealing to us directly. We want to respond. And yet our answers are probably never going to be satisfactory to you because this process is a giant pain in the ass. Totally well noted. And it's designed to take forever. And that's what happens. So it can't feel good being in that position. And I don't know what the current state, for example, is. I don't know if they've bought the property, if they're planning on it, or if they're bagging the whole thing. But we haven't had any contact with Gotion since, I don't know how long it's been. And so you guys probably know more about the current state than we do. That's the truth.
Well, Scott, I would have one question. Within the slide that said, is MRWA aware of Eagle's state of regulatory capture? And I just like to know what the intent of that was. And, maybe there's something that you believe that we need to know, as far as we move forward.
That's a good question.
Because if we're going to talk EIS, that it has to do with jurisdiction and who's able to actually request the document.
Okay.
I'm happy to offer a clarification on that particular point, Mike.
Sure.
So, there's several things that we could discuss in regards to the regulatory capture of Eagle, but in the interest of keeping us out of the weeds, I will point to one particularly egregious instance, which I think is really quite clarifying. one of the main roads down in Marshall. I have it in my notes. Forgive me, it's not right in front of me. But it was one of the main roads of some, very old maples in that farmland that did end up getting clear cut by MEDA, the Marshall Area Economic Development Corporation down there. Those trees had nesting boxes for federally protected bat species that had been actually put there by MDARD. And what happened in regards to Eagle's involvement on the project, with, of course, as the Ford Blue Oval site down there, was that as MEDA was going through the permitting process, or I should say as Ford Cattle was going through the permitting process along with MEDA, MEDA came in and cut all of those trees down with the nesting boxes inside before Eagle came out and checked the sites for bats as part of the permitting process. This is precisely, Matt Powers is another local agriculturalist, I believe, who has had significant problems with Eagle as a small agriculturalist, all but, on the other side of things, basically just trying to arbitrarily prohibit him from doing business. So there's, and then we can get into, the number of members of the Thelen family that are on Eagle and other regulatory agencies. But as I say, I don't want to get into the weeds. The destruction of the MDARD nesting bat boxes in Marshall and Eagle's effective facilitation in that is deeply concerning. And up here in Big Rapids, in regards to the wetlands and to the aquifers, it gives us absolutely no confidence whatsoever in Eagle's ability to do its due diligence in taking preventive measures to protect the environment, rather than expensive cleanup measures after catastrophe has taken place.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
your
you.
point. Go ahead, Marty.
Well, I was just curious. I mean, one of the reasons, Scott, we talked about that you didn't mention the EIS is that it's a federal document that goes under NEPA planning, and there is a place for that, within this process. But in reference to Eagle, they do have a process, but the NEPA is something that we'd be working with the federal government on, likely EPA. It could also be Fish and Wildlife Service, depending on what any findings are as far as impact. And so that's what I was curious if we're talking about federal or state regulatory authority.
I don't know if this question is directed to me, but it's my understanding that Eagle is operating under the regulatory and review oversight of our local EPA Region 5,
Yeah,
which would make
that's
it federal.
correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
So that's
Which is why we've been reaching out to the EPA and asking them to investigate the situation,
Yeah.
as I say, because we have no confidence in Eagle.
Yeah, that's a good.
And
good
from
strategy.
everybody that we have reached out to at Region 5 EPA and even themselves in Eagle, when you make statements or when you repeat the statements that Chuck Thelen or that, our township supervisor has said to us and has said to the community, all recorded about 100% non-toxic and no environmental threats, they are all just blown away and say that that is the farthest from truth. Why would we have these regulations? Why would we have these protocols? Why would they be involved at all if they were 100% non-toxic and no threat to us or our environment? And that he should not be speaking that way to us. And that is where, I personally, Brandi, wish that Eagle or some other type of environmental agency would get involved and just oversee how he is handling and treating this situation. Because if they are going to, I think this is like, mass negligence and misleading us. If they're going to start doing this now, and he's also going to be the VP, the vice president, so he's going to be running the spills or the contamination. So is he going to mislead us any further? And, you guys being an organization, it should be red flags to you where he says, oh, fish can eat these chemicals and, they're not toxic, but yet we know that they are, and they could be to our waterways. And as close as it's going to be to the Dizelle Creek with the wetlands that leads right to the Muskegon River and leading to the Great Lakes and all that we have here that relies on the river. And that's what, your organization is supposed to protect. And him just speaking that way, and then to bring in, the MRWA, all in the same phrase of these are non-toxic, non-hazardous, nothing. He brings into your organization and says that there is absolutely no concerns through an email, which, you know, that's what has gotten us all here in this meeting to begin with, because he was only supposed to, Chuck Thelen was only supposed to have sent a copy of the presentation that was given for the first responders. And all I called the MRWA on was to see to it that maybe that would be made public so the public wouldn't have concerns if you guys no longer had concerns. And who I had first spoke to at the MRWA said that was completely and utterly untrue, that Chuck Thelen lied and that there was no email and that there was not that there was concerns, but just like you guys just stated, we don't know none of the real concerns until they submit to Eagle or until we see an EIS, and we have yet to see any of that, so we don't know the real risks or the real hazards.
The science, right?
The science behind it.
Which was the, I believe one of the second questions that was listed in the presentation. But again, I didn't want to jump onto that unless you guys wanted to remain on this point.
You know, and I don't know what, you know, I guess nothing can be said to that, you know, and that's, I'm just stating, you know, that was just my concerns and our concerns, that the community has the know-how and the truth, transparency, and that, yes, there's going to be regulations and things put in place, but ultimately, when Eagle and all these people put these regulations in, it's up to this company. And if he's speaking for this company and half running this company, this is what we're getting.
It is. No, Brandy's right. It ultimately is putting all the responsibility back on Gotion, which matches with the right places and the MVDCs and local township officials' language in regards to trusting Gotion and to trusting the developer that's coming in. Before I miss the opportunity, I do want to take a chance to kind of jump back and address the environmental impact and kind of what Scott and Marty mentioned earlier in regards to that. I noticed that, you know, at no point, as you were talking about the data to gather, you know, that you would work with Eagle, that Eagle would get, at no point did either of you say environmental impact study or statement or EIS. You know, there's some reference to impact data. I do understand that an environmental impact study is a separate report from the permitting process. And by all of your description and working with Eagle and the impact data that Eagle will gather, it sounds to me like you are describing permits, which again, I know for a fact and have had verified by many other construction industry, manufacturing industry professionals, that an environmental impact study is separate from the permitting process and also comes before. So I guess I just want to clarify that as you are talking about the impact data that will be gathered from Eagle that you will review, you are indeed talking about the permitting process, not environmental impact studies.
So just to clarify, are you asking if we will review the EIS when it comes out?
I'm asking if there will be an EIS.
Has to be.
That's what everyone has said, but every time I ask about it, including in this conversation, I get told about when the permits will be applied for.
And the reason behind that is all of that data and the reporting needs to be compiled prior to, right? And I think that's what you're getting to at. And
Right,
that's
because
why
it doesn't
that's
make
such an
sense for an EIS to be performed after shovels are in the ground.
That's exactly right. And that's the important part. And I think what I see, it's this, no pun intended, it is kind of this watershed moment in review, because all of this information is available and it's open for review. And I can tell you right now that any and all information that is provided and produced, we will review. And we will be looking for what those potential impacts are to the watershed. And
Right,
that's what
but I
we
guess
do.
my question in all of this is, will that information include an actual environmental impact statement? And again, here, I want to refer to the comments made by Brandi Thelen, the CEO and president of the Right Place. As you know, their involvement, they're the Economic Development Corporation behind this project. His comment over the phone and in person was in regards to the environmental impact statement. He didn't punt me over to permits. I think that this is very salient. He said that they couldn't perform an environmental impact study because they couldn't find any other similar industry examples against which to benchmark it, which of course raised my red flag, because what that tells me is this entire industry thinks that it can get away with development with no environmental impact reporting. And these kinds of conversations where official after official tries to convince me that environmental impact statements are just presupposed to be a part of the permitting process, I have me deeply concerned. And I do want to go back. I think that, I can't remember if it was Marty or Scott who made the comment that I think is telling, and we should go back and revisit, which is EISs are simply just not a legal requirement. So that tells me that there's no plan for it to be done, that it won't be done, and the Eagle's
Well,
just going to rubber stamp the
No,
permits.
Neither one of us said that. And it's if a NEPA will occur or an EIS will occur if there's federal agency jurisdiction, or if they assess that there's going to be an impact to a physical, cultural, human environment. So the question is this under federal agency jurisdiction? That also is also for federal tax dollars. If federal tax dollars is applied for within this project, then there will be an EIS necessitated. Now, there are conditions with these, and that's why, a great question that EPA, which I believe you've asked, and Eagle, is does it meet the criteria for an EIS? And if it meets that federal tax dollars are being expended on this project, or if a federal agency has jurisdiction, such as the EPA, then it will be required.
Let me ask you this. Let me put it this way. If it's true that the EIS must be completed before shovels go in the ground, because the presumption is that whether or not the project will move through is dependent in part upon the results of the EIS. In other words, that the EIS could make or break the project. And if the results are unfavorable, the certain stakeholders at play have the option to pull out of the agreement. If that is true, if we take that presumption in good faith, then why would it make sense for the developer to have to purchase and acquire the land, millions and millions of dollars in these types of cases, before investing in the environmental impact report that could make or break the project?
Because they believe it will be permitted.
Yep.
And that's where we get nervous as living here and being surrounded by it and speaking directly with these people from Eagle and the EPA, and then also their spokesperson, Chuck Thelen, and our supervisor. Like she said, it'll just be rubber stamped through. It kind of seems like here nor there for us to really know what we're going to be breathing and living next to when they've already purchased it and are just going to do it. Eagle tells us, yes, you could shut, there's going to be public hearings. There's going to be these things. It's not necessarily a go, but you don't hear our township supervisor or Gotion or anybody bringing up that aspect, because it's as if they already know it doesn't matter.
This is it precisely. I guess it wasn't necessarily Brandi and my intention to make this the conclusion of this meeting, but I think that this conversation has pretty well elucidated the fact that, yeah, that's exactly what we think, not just how we feel, but what all of the evidence indicates in this situation is that we are supposed to consider this to be a done deal. And these questions aren't being asked because nobody's listening for the answers. But
Yeah,
Brandi and I, and
that's
many
sort of
others
one,
are.
that's sort of one way to view it. And I guess this is Scott again. I know we're all kind of, blanked out. We can't see each other. Um, that's one view of it. And I really understand where you're coming from that. It's another thing. Like if for example, I'm Gotion for a minute, and I know that my plans have got to pass muster with the EPA, with Eagle, with everybody else. I have to wager that a modern plant with modern techniques is going to check all the boxes, or I wouldn't.
Why do you have to wager that, Scott? Why? With
well,
all of the evidence to the contrary.
Okay, can I speak, Marjorie?
Please.
Thanks. What I'm saying is that's just how business works, right? They believe that they know how to make these things, how they know how to make them responsibly. Now, whether that's true or not remains to be seen. I get that too. I really do. But they believe that, or they never would go down this road. They certainly wouldn't buy a bunch of property. And so I've been involved in a couple of EAs, just environmental assessments, and where they inevitably end up with are their statements at the end that basically posit no significant impact. Like those to a developer, those are the sweetest words that can come out of an environmental assessment, that based on the design, based on the materials that we've analyzed, based on this, there will be no significant impact. Or it will say there will be some impact that can be offset using X, Y, and Z. And so there, and again, we're not trying to dance around the reality of it, but if I'm playing Gotion, I'm not going to spend, I'm going to guess millions of dollars on an EIS or an EA for something this size, unless I have to. And they're going to have to, but they don't need to spend it ahead of time. But where I'm going with this, and it might be useful, is it would certainly be an act of great good faith to the community for Gotion to say, you know what, it's not required, and we're going to do it anyway, because we believe in the design of our plant. And we're going to go ahead and do the environmental impact study. We don't even own the damn property yet. And if I were them, that's what I would do, as a very strong move to say, I believe in what I'm saying. And I believe in the design of what we're trying to build here, but they haven't done that. And I don't know why. That's definitely a question for Gotion. The practical answer is because they don't have to. And until you're the landowner, you can't even apply. I don't even know if you can get an EIS done if you're not the property owner. So it's a real chicken and egg problem, and it's maddening. I get that, but it would be an act of great
No,
charity.
it's not maddening. It's deeply concerning.
Of course. But I mean, put yourself in their position. You're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a study that's not yet required.
No, Scott, I
yeah.
think that Gotion needs to put themselves in the position of the thousands of residents that
Yeah, I
live
get
in
it.
this county
I
who
get
do
it.
not share your confidence in businesses' good-hearted nature and willingness to do their due diligence, Scott.
You're misquoting me again, Marjorie, because I'm not agreeing with you in every chapter and verse in your storyline. I'm not going to. I'm just telling you that you have to understand other perspectives. Otherwise, you're painting nothing but a villainous picture of an industry that they have to play by the rules. Now, are they playing by the rules? I don't know. I don't like all their tactics or anything else, but at the same time, we have to be brought in at the right time, or we can't do our job. And Marty's been through this permitting process a number of times. I had been through the EI, that was called environmental assessment on the Dragon Trail, for example. I was involved in that project for 7 years. That thing took forever, and it was extremely laborious and very specific. And so that's why I have confidence in the process of doing an EA, because you do get to some pretty good conclusions. Now, on the other hand, I can also tell you of an example going on right now that's very disheartening. And that's, we're working on a project with Consumers Energy on the spillway project at Hardy Dam. And, the land up there has been utterly destroyed, dozens and dozens and dozens of acres. And they're still in the permitting process. So I absolutely share your concern about it. I'm just trying to introduce some dynamics to help maybe understand better. I'm not saying it's a great answer. I'm just saying it's something that is going on there. Is they're not doing the EIS because they don't have to, and they don't own the land. And
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all I had to say.
I do appreciate that perspective, Scott, and I definitely I understand where Gotion is from, and I think I understand their motivations quite well. This is the part where I remind you that I have taught business at Kendall College for the last 8 years as an adjunct. So I do understand how business works. I just still think that it's greedy and corrupt, and still don't want it in my community. But I don't need to keep hammering that point home. I do think that in the interest of time and respect of all of yours, and also, you know, all of our sanity, I think that probably the utility of this meeting has been reached, unless Brandi or anyone else had anything that they wanted to add.
No, I mean, I guess I would just like to ask Marty, you know, since he is like the scientist behind this, with all of the, you know, information, with the materials that were sent in. I mean, they're not 100% non-toxic, right? I mean, they're not, you know, no threat to us or our environment. I mean,
Yeah,
did I?
no, the chemicals that are listed, of course they are.
Okay. And then, you know, and
I
I
guess
would just.
what are you asking of us? Because we are
Okay,
happy.
and see, and really, you know, and what, this is Brandi speaking, and really, there wasn't much asking. Like I said in the beginning, I called the MRWA because Chuck Thelen spoke at our township board meeting and stated these are 100% non-toxic. The graphite that is used is in the number 2 pencil. It's completely different. It's very toxic. The graphite is combustible. And also, he stated that he's been working collaboratively with our MRWA, you guys, in that he received an email stating there's absolutely no concerns whatsoever, and that all you wanted was a copy of the presentation and the SDSs. And
Like, I can tell you that's simply not true, and I have not seen any information, and I have not met with them. And like I'd mentioned before, I am waiting for those data, and we will do a full review on that, and you know, work with the public, but also the regulatory agencies in going through that information. You know, and I mean, I appreciate you calling us, because that is our role. You know, to make sure that the watershed is protected. You know, we all live here, and that's what I can tell you, is that when that information is available, I'll be scouring it, and you know, working to the best of my ability to make sure that we're living up to our mission.
right, and I believe that you will. And that, like, I would just like, you know, clarify, because like I said, transparency for the community, and we have dealt with, like you guys said, we might know a little bit more than you. We've called a lot of people, we've talked to a lot of people, our township supervisor Randy Thelen, Chuck Thelen, the MEDC, all of them. Okay, and they're all telling stories, they're all manipulating and things. And supposedly you guys said that Chuck Thelen, that statement that receiving the email with 100% no concerns was not true. And I was at
Well,
first told there would be a press release done.
can
And
we
that would,
take 100% off the table, though?
okay, well, and
Because
I
that
would
is
just,
not something that I haven't even spoken to him. So for us to say that we're 100% okay, that's disingenuous.
Not true.
okay.
Okay, that is one point of satisfaction that we can take away from that meeting. That is a direct answer that you have, you know, or question that you have answered and clarified
Because,
for us.
you know, I got a little back and forth as Scott and Sarah knowing things. And so for my sanity and for whatever, I mean, the runaround was kind of disheartening. So I just would like, you know, clarify that, no,
Yeah.
it wasn't true, because speaking with Sarah and hearing Marty and things, you know, I
Well-
like to trust in the MRWA, and I think that we can.
And also as
Yeah.
an organization, you know, as an organizational leader, I do not want to misquote you. So if that was a misquote, nor do I want to say that that was a misquote if I don't know that that's true. So, you know, with that confirmation, I will refer to that comment by Chuck Thelen as a misquote. And as I say, with respect to everyone's time. I think that probably concludes the utility of the meeting. Want to appreciate your time and your concern on this issue. I also want to, offer a lingering invitation. Idra is happy to play ball with anyone who has sincere and honest interest in I guess communicating or working on this issue. So, if things come up, you have other news that you want to get out there, you're not satisfied with the Pioneer, you want to collaborate, I'm always here. You're most welcome to give me a call.
Yeah, we appreciate that. It is starting to piss me off a little bit that the Pioneer didn't do anything with the information we provided. I don't understand that. So it just is.
Well, I might point to their
Probably
18-mile road property and their
Yeah.
NDA that they most likely signed.
check. That might be it. Anyway,
There's a-
well, thank you guys for your time. We appreciate it. And we hear where you're coming from and we want to continue having a relationship with you guys. I hope you understand that. And this is just evidence of that. Okay.
Okay,
Same
thank
here.
you so much.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.